Yeah, again.
We didn't have a game of the week poll, so be prepared to announce your game of the week pick, and
Okay.
then we're gonna do it like that. Because I have the one, I think I know the one that I was gonna pick, and so we'll see what everybody says. Okay, ready?
Sure.
Caleb, pass the weeb.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I bounce early. I kind of wanted to download the app so I can be the traveling reporter again, but
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah.
Back when he was doing Scouts Elite podcasts in like random school halls.
yeah, good times.
All right. Okay. Welcome, everybody. It's the Week 8 Podcast 2018 web.com. Hello, everybody.
Saturday edition. Hello.
Saturday edition.
No coffee. No.
I do. I got it. I got you covered.
Nice. Caleb's got a huge water.
Oh, yeah. Got to stay hydrated.
Caleb is here despite the fact that he didn't think he was going to be here, and he might have to dip early, but I at least am glad that he's here to talk about these trades that have occurred in the last week.
Yeah.
There's a couple big ones.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to put my input on some stuff, so
Yeah.
thought I could hop on real quick.
Yeah, and not to mention Week 8, also crazy week of games.
Wild.
Happening. But before we get into the games, we're not jumping right in this week. We are going to talk about these trades because the trade deadline is still 2 weeks away, and yet we have these massive trades pouring in already. Teams are already starting to kind of make these moves with how close everything is this season. A little bit added pressure.
Yeah, definitely.
So the first one was something that we were talking about on the podcast last week. And I didn't really think it was real. I thought it was kind of a fake thing until all of a sudden it happened.
Yeah, we were talking about it, and I was just like, oh, this is fake. This is total fake news. This is never going to happen. All of a sudden, 24 hours later, we got this massive trade being announced on the Twitter machine.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah, it was so big that I had to like cut out some words because the tweet didn't fit with all the names and picks involved. I had to like trim it down. I was like, oh, geez.
This is the kind of trade like we don't really see too often anymore. People are kind of afraid to make these types of trades, and for good reason, because we've seen them blow up in people's faces more often than not, and mostly my face.
Very rare that we see studs on the move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of the what happened with this trade. Pretty prototypical even year Mingo, not being composed at all, and thinking that he needs to go out and grab a top tier wide receiver because that's what I do every time, and trade Jamal Charles and let Brock go 14-0. But so Michael Thomas is obviously the name that you think of now. Like he's kind of putting himself in that top tier. And Caleb, a little bit of a rebuild type of a season. So I'm like, here we go. And what ended up happening was basically I traded everybody for Michael Thomas. So Caleb, why don't you start here? You're the one that dealt the big boy and got all the shit.
Yeah. Michael Thomas had been untouchable for like pretty much forever. Like he's one of my favorite players that I watched in college, and I have him in every single league I'm in outside of one. So really attached to this guy. Didn't even consider trading him at all. And then all of a sudden you just sort of threw an offer at me, and I was like, for the first time, I actually contemplated maybe moving him, and There's a lot of moving parts. I got Corey Davis back, who was another one of those. It's like sort of a Michael Thomas crush. So, you know, I trade one love of my life for another. It didn't burn as bad. And then get a stud running back once he's healthy, like Leonard Fournette. Hunter Henry coming back home again. So started some emotional time for him. Joey Bosa, Kiki Kuti, like, you know, it was tough. It definitely was. But it was a move that I felt had to be made, just to sort of shore up some different parts in the rebuild.
Frazier, as an objective observer of this trade, what do you think about it?
From an outsider standpoint, I actually do like it for both sides. I'm a strong proponent of in a 10-team league, if you have a chance to get a stud, to go get that stud and worry about your depth later. So I like it from Corf's standpoint. I also like that he snuck in Amari Cooper there.
Yeah.
I was kind of shopping in there, trying to buy low on Amari.
Yeah, Amari.
So that could be...
That wasn't, I don't
It's
know.
a complete wild card part of that
Yeah.
trade.
Really is. Like, at this point, it was like, this might be the highest his value ever is with him going to the Cowboys. So it could go up for him, but I'm done with Amari. I'm so done with him. And I was ready to move on. Like,
Yeah.
this was the time.
Yeah, so not only does Corf bring home Michael Thomas, obviously one of the best wide receivers in the league, he brings in Amari Cooper, who's got that draft capital, prior history of putting up a wide receiver one season. So new team, kind of a roll the dice move there, see what happens. From Caleb's standpoint, he brought home a haul. I was looking through his team after the trade, and I was just like, this team is all of a sudden just absurdly deep with like young talent, which we thought like going into last year, but I think it kind of things dissipated. And it's fantasy. So now he reloads for next year. Huge part of this is going to be, can Fournette stay healthy? If Fournette stays healthy, that is going to be a really nice trade for Caleb. Corey Davis, hopefully going into, he's in year 2, so hopefully you start to see some more glimpses from him. Hunter Henry will be back next year. Joey Bosa, a huge defensive piece when he's healthy, and also snags a first. I think it was a really nice trade for both teams.
Yeah, and that's like one part of it was so many of the guys that Caleb got were hurt. So this is a typical move of a team that's, you know, thinking this season and that's it. Like I got, you know, who knows when Fournette's coming back. Bosa's coming back in a few weeks, but my D-line spots are already pretty locked down. Yeah. And then obviously Hunter Henry out for the season, but it was kind of a, you know, a lot of the guys that you were interested in, Caleb, were those guys that were kind of shelved for me, and I wasn't feeling them this season yet. So
exactly, like that was like when other people talked about maybe a trade for Michael Thomas, there just wasn't enough players on other teams that I was like invested in, like super interested in, that it would have worked out. Like Corvus was the perfect team where it's just like a bunch of players, even though they're hurt. I'm obviously not trying to win this season. Getting to the playoffs looks pretty difficult, but like those are just the players I'm like high on and I really like. So honestly, I think you were the only real trade partner I could have had from Michael Thomas trade.
This wasn't really even like when you think about trading Michael Thomas, you think about, oh, I'm fucking blowing it up for 2 years, 2 or 3 years. I'm not going to be back for 2 or 3 years. But this is the kind of trade where Caleb sets himself up nice for 2019 with the potential for all of these, maybe all 4 of those first 4 players being in a starting lineup.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too with it, was like these are all players that are going to see Caleb's lineup like as soon as they come back or next season. Like I kind of coined this phrase, a rebuild accelerator. I was throwing out rebuild accelerators to Dave and Caleb. But I think that's real. Like, you know, Caleb has a playoff season last year despite, you know, some weaker numbers. And then this season we see that like reflected in his record a little bit more. Well, now he gets this haul of guys. He gets Fournette pairing with Mixon and Carry-On. All of a sudden you got a nice young running back core. You lose Michael Thomas in the wide receiver spot, but like that's, you get the extra first round pick, probably a first or second overall pick coming in this season.
Yeah, and what's supposed to be a strong wide receiver class this year. So yeah, obviously the wide receivers took a little bit of a hit, but I really wanted to get that foundation at running back that other teams have thrived on.
Yeah, and like from my point of view, like Michael Thomas was just kind of the cream of the crop in terms of receivers that I felt like were available for this type of a price. And now with Thomas, Juju, Keenan Allen wide receiver core, I can finally feel pretty good about that. And it becomes a lot more important now that Will Fuller is out for the season.
Yeah,
because he was a starter in that group for me. And without Michael Thomas, I would be starting like Geronimo Allison or something in the wide receiver 3. So kind of a perfect little timing on this trade. Also the Amari Cooper, like that's the thing, is like you're super over Amari Cooper, and for me, like being a new owner of him and he's going to the Cowboys, it's like a really exciting player that I feel like I'm going to hate by the time the season is over. But he's in my flex this week, so he is making his debut in week 1 with my team. But yeah, so that was a huge trade. I kind of went back and looked like what was the last time we saw a trade of this kind of magnitude. And I mean, like you can say the Antonio Brown trade was obviously one of the highest impact trades that has ever been made, but that was still only like 4 pieces moving. Like you don't really see these monster hauls as much anymore. Calvin Johnson kind of ruined that, I think, when he retired 2 years later or whatever. Yeah. But all right. And then we had another trade just coming in. What was it, yesterday? 2 days ago?
Yes, yesterday it was made.
Yeah. So Gronk, a 2-time championship player with the Fraser Fresh squad, been a rock since 2014.
14. Traded for him before the undefeated year, yeah.
Yeah. So
3.5-year run. 14,
yeah.
15, 16. Nope. 4.5.
And like this was, at the time, Gronk was the guy. Gronk was the tight end to own, the only one. A little bit different Gronk here in 2018, a little bit older. And you got George Kittle. So walk us through this trade. How did this happen?
So this offseason, I trade Kyle Rudolph because I feel as though George Kittle is ready to step in as the backup tight end to Gronk. And as we all know, Gronk past 6-7 years, if he's playing and healthy, he's the tight end 1. Well, that hasn't been the case this year. Doesn't have a touchdown since week 1. George Kittle is playing outstanding, including his Thursday night, whatever the hell just went on there. That was awesome. So, and actually, Josh had initially sent me this offer before the Thursday night game. So we're looking at it, and I needed running back depth mostly. So I see Alex Collins, I see Trey Burton, who's low-key having a pretty nice year, actually averaging more points than Gronk right now. I'm tired of flexing at tight end. I know Kittle's kind of forced himself into my lineup, so within 8 weeks, Kittle has forced me to trade Rudolph and now Gronk.
Damn.
And Gronk, like, I don't want to badmouth him too much because he's Josh's now, and I respect Josh's team, but he hasn't looked the same this year. I think he's looked a little bit slower. I'm a little bit concerned on the injuries. It's one of those things where Kittle's ready to step in. Like, am I going to trade Gronk right now and get some value? Or am I going to risk him possibly retiring at the end of the year, which he talked about last year? And with this year looking a little bit more hurt, maybe those injuries are catching up to him. I thought it was a good time to cash in on the value and let Kittle go to Josh. As far as Josh's side, I like it for him too. He doesn't really give up much in way of his starting lineup was. Takes a chance on Gronk, who still, it's Gronk. Like, he could all of a sudden be doing what he did a few years or as close as last year and be a stud in Josh's lineup and this new Pac-5 leader.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think like this when I initially saw the trade, you know, there's kind of this connotation around Gronkowski's name that makes you think like he's the guy. And I'm seeing this trade and I'm kind of like, what the hell? Like this doesn't seem like a ton. But then all of a sudden you realize it's not 2015 anymore. This is 29-year-old Gronk who's having a 1 touchdown season halfway through. And like you said, could easily, could all of a sudden start producing here down the stretch, and you get some old Gronk numbers for Josh moving into this playoff stretch. But definitely probably the right time for your team to move him, I would say.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's one of those things where am I going to just let him retire on my team and kind of be forced to flex him and watch him kind of be hobbled around? Like, I think for me, there's a good time to kind of say goodbye, as depressing as it was.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting trade. I didn't really see it coming for Josh to go out and get Gronk, but with Trey Burton like scoring more points and whatnot. But nice, it's a decent haul for you. Like Alex Collins hasn't really had a huge season, but there's still like touchdown production you could get there. James Washington, that's a prospect for the future, maybe a Antonio Brown replacement.
It's one of my guys.
Yeah. So either way, yeah, it's tough to tell whether Gronk is gonna come alive here at some point, but I'm okay with the trade both ways. I think it's okay. It was sort of like a weird little, not really a rebuild trade for you, but adding some depth to your team that has sorely needed it. So
yeah. And also another side note from Josh's angle is he picks up a second in there as well. He gets an older player. This is still a team that does need a little bit of an infusion, despite its successful 2018 campaign of young talent. So another second is definitely beneficial for Josh as well. Yeah. So 2 massive trades. We've had a few good ones this season already, and I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 2 weeks when everybody's doing the whole scrambling. It's on a Thursday this year. ESPN has changed from Wednesday to Thursday.
Ooh.
So it is the official start of Week 11. The first day of what would be Week 11 is the trade deadline. So
we get 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A little less.
2 weeks.
Should be
maybe you have a repeat of last year where me and Brock are both texting Josh at 11:58 trying to get these trades done.
That was awesome. Yeah, 2 with I think I just lost my train of thought. Damn it.
Classic. All right. So until Frazier gets his head out of his ass and thinks what he's going to say, let's get into Week 8 because
I remembered. I was going to say it's interesting too because right now we only have 2 teams that are really considered out of it at this point. And you would imagine one of these 4-4 teams is going to be 4-6, and that could open up a new crop of trade deadline players.
Yeah,
entered into the pool.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see where we're sitting at that point because I mean, I don't know what's happening. Let's talk about Week 8 because this was another week in which scoring was very high. This was one of our highest scoring weeks of the season. Actually, the second highest scoring week of the season by a decimal, but and we saw some interesting results. And it was another week in which things are just not falling the way that we saw in the preseason. So we didn't have a game of the week poll. I'm going to ask you, I already have mine in my brain. Who's your game of the week?
I believe I would have picked Josh and Tim.
Caleb?
I think there were literally so many. I wish there would have been a poll because there were literally so many, so many good games this week. I think I would have gone with you two. up against each other. Honestly,
Mm.
two teams that it's sort of like in the middle of the pack with everyone else that really needed a win to keep things going. So
See, that's the thing is like this week too. I put the poll up early because it's the same thing. Like everybody's 4-4, and then they're all playing each other. But then you
Yeah.
also have like these conference like games where Josh is 6-2, and it's like who are you going to vote for here? But I agreed with Frazier. I said Josh and Tim. So let's ride with that as the official game of the week of week 8.
Sounds good.
So Josh obviously we had him on last week talking about this magical season, and he adds James White, and he comes out here and posts 162.6. So once again, right at that 160 marker, he's hitting it every single week. It seems like past 3 weeks he's hit it, and he's on a 4-game winning streak now with a victory over Tim, who was a preseason potential Pac-5 pick. So now we're 8 games in. Josh is 6-2.
Mm-hmm.
This is a playoff team. Am I right in saying that?
This is looking like a playoff team. He has quite the resume too. He's now beat Tim, you, Bingo, and Dan.
Jeez.
That's 3 big wins right there. And Parker. 4 big wins.
Yeah, he's been beating teams that have come in with the odds to beat him, and he's proving that his team can score enough points that he can do this any given week. Highest offensive total for him week 8 after the James White addition. So the offense on the upswing following that. We'll see how the Gronk trade affects that. And obviously the defense, which has kind of been the story of this team, another 60-point performance. During this 4-game winning streak, they have not been below 60. So,
wow. Yeah, this Darius Leonard trade keeps going. Jesse Bates, I'm looking at his numbers here. He's the number 2 scoring safety, averaging over 10 points a game. So that's low-key a pretty big piece to that as well. Just a good defense. And then the running backs. The running backs had a ton of production this week. Marlon Mack has put together a nice little stretch here. We'll see if we can keep that up. It was kind of a soft schedule, but James White edition did well again. And Lamar Miller almost had 20 points. He sort of masked out the wide receiver production where he got 1.8 from Traquan, 1.2 from Kenny Galladay, and just 5 from Tate. So sort of masked that out of there with the defense and the running back production.
I was going to say this, as long as we're on Josh. What a draft day that Josh had.
Yeah, that's his team right there.
Combine everything. And that's with Darius Geis going down. If Darius Geis was still up, his draft day, so he picks second, Darius Geis, picks up an extra 2019 first, picked up Golden Tate, made a couple of other trades, picks up Marlon Mack and Lamar Miller in one day. He completely transformed his team in one day, and it was so under the radar.
Yeah, like none of those were like high profile moves, and at the time, some of them were even like, what is he really thinking going into this season? Like, I know the example that I think of is the Lamar Miller trade, in which he gave up a first. But yeah, it's all worked out for him. And Golden Tate comes over in that monster trade for the number 1 pick that he's kind of like almost like an offhand addition to that trade, and now all of a sudden he's having a great season. Now he's going to the Eagles, opens up a doorway for maybe more production from Kenny Galladay on a week-to-week basis. You're definitely right. This team made some pretty significant trades that didn't really look like it.
It's crazy when you think about a team that traded away possibly one of the greatest running back talents of all time for its draft pick to pick him, trades him away, and still had probably the best draft out of anybody that day in total when you include trades and stuff.
I I have to ask the question: has Devontae Parker arrived?
Okay, I gotta say a piece on this
Oh,
because I obviously it's well known that I love Devontae Parker, and I got him from Brock, and then I had to trade him for my baby, who's now gone. And Josh came to me before week 8 games, like last week, and was like, "Hey, are you interested in Devontae Parker for X player, which I will not name?" And I was like, I just don't think it's ever going to happen. I love him. I really still do love him, but I don't think this is ever going to happen. 2 days later, I'm watching this game. Devontae Parker looks like Julio Jones. He is all over the field. He's just bodying everybody. He can't be stopped. And I'm like, this is it. This is him. This is what he should have been for the last 3 years. I think he's arrived.
I'm gonna hold the phone on it. I don't. We'll see. Let me see him string together like maybe 2 good games.
I want to see the string together. I think the biggest issue that I've heard with Devontae Parker is his head.
Yeah.
So that can get in the way. Like we knew he was this talented. We knew he could do this. Hadn't seen it yet, but now we saw it. So now it's interesting again.
See, and that's the problem is like you see a game like Thursday and it makes you really sad that this player is not fully invested in this because this is what he could be.
Yeah.
You know, like
I mean, he's basically a meme, just like Devontae Parker breakout 2018.
Yeah, it's every year.
2019, 2020.
You know what he'll do? He'll string together some subpar games around week 15 or 16. He'll put up another 100-yard game, but it doesn't matter, and he'll be on the breakout list for next year.
He had a strong finish to the 2018 season. I think 2019, he's really gonna. I can't get myself to buy in on him until I see any sort of consistency where he can stay healthy or get his head straight. I'm still out on him.
But if let's say that, you know, maybe this is the start of something. This would be a huge thing for Josh. You know, having this in his wide receiver core now would be really nice for him. But the jury is still out. I love him, but I hope this is what he is. But we'll see. So Josh comes in 162 this week, healthy little total, still only a WIB of 3. This was a high scoring week. Most teams were over that 150 marker. One of the teams that was not was Tim. Tim posted a week low this week. 131 was your week low. This is coming off of a 3-game winning streak in which he had a week high in there and another 190 point game as well. I mean, this is obviously probably an outlier week for Tim, but just happens to come against the guy that, he wanted to beat here, Pac-5 race. Now 4-4 for Tim, 2 games back. What do you think?
It would have been really nice for Tim to beat Josh this week, especially considering if he could have took him down without his 2 running backs, both on bye. If he could get a win on that week, you'd really like to see that. But saying that, I don't know how upset you can be losing a week without your
it's tough.
Your Zeke and Gordon. But it was his first week with Rodgers. Rodgers puts up a respectable total. You got to think that that's going to be consistent 20 points from here on out. Concerns. I think Eric Ebron only played like 20% of the snaps.
Yeah, Jack Doyle came in and dominated got most of the snaps out there. So that could be
is Tim's magical Ebron running low? Is it over?
I mean, he still got a touchdown, but
touchdown, yeah. But
we'll
that's all of a sudden a concern again instead of magical trade.
So dumb. It's like another classic case of me trading someone who is irrelevant. That's why it's like trading a guy like Amari is like, well, if I keep him on my team, he's probably going to do nothing. But if I trade him to Corf, he'll do good on his team. So sometimes you just got to, I don't know.
But yeah, so clears his buys for Zeke and Gordon in the same week. Going to be pretty big for him that he just got that over with in 1 week. And
He does have
a
Odell and T.Y. are on a bye this week.
really.
Yeah, so
he's kind of clearing his studs out here in a 2-week stretch. So
yeah,
But
it'll be nice after this week.
the other thing here too is like he posts a 70 on offense this week. Obviously his lowest of the season without those guys in there. He was at 76 last week though. So this is back to back, shaky performances. He managed to get the win in week 7. And now with, another round of buys here coming up and a game against Carter, who's obviously having a nice little season. All of a sudden here, this could be 4-5, and you're in a little bit of trouble again if you're Tim. I want to say I think there's a quarterback controversy on this team, and adding Rodgers, honestly, I think only made things worse.
Yeah, Russell Wilson outscored Rodgers this week. So
Mitch Trubisky
been putting up numbers.
This is not the kind of player that should be not starting anymore. He should be starting, and now you have Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. You got to decide between those three.
See, I disagree because I think now that he has Rodgers, you just need to pick Rodgers. That's your stud, and just ride him.
Right, but see that I agree with that. You have Rodgers, you have to play Rodgers, but you have to play Rodgers over guys that are probably going to produce more. At least one of them on a week. Like Rodgers isn't having a Rodgers, season. He's got the 28 point games back to back there, and then now back down to 15 against the Rams. I think that he had these two options, and I think honestly with Trubisky's season, with the last 4 weeks, I don't know. I think it's complicated.
Like Tim is so susceptible to when things like this start to happen to him of just trying, he picks a different one. He's just notorious for picking a different one and just always picking the wrong one. That happens to him so much. So that's why I think you just pick Rodgers. Don't worry about your bench. Maybe try and trade one of them if you can. I know the quarterback market's usually pretty non-existent in Webb, but
I think you'd have Josh in the market for one of those quarterbacks.
Maybe.
Maybe like a Trubisky to Josh's team with, he's got Rivers and nothing else after that. But anyway, I get what you're saying though. Plug Rodgers in. He's still Rodgers. So
if he gets in this game of trying to pick which one to play each week, I know it's just going to screw him over each week. It's just going to quit fantasy football.
Tim is the matchups guy too. He's always reading into the matchups, and the 1 week he texted me, he benched it Alshon Jeffrey because it was raining in Philadelphia, and then Jeffrey had 16 points or something. Just can you just start your guys?
Unless it's world-ending weather, I'm not.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. Yeah, this obviously was a bad week for Tim, and he had this one circled on his calendar from the beginning. I remember him talking about week 8 without those guys, and he didn't want Dan that week. I kind of wish I would have given him Dan that week. We should have been thinking about that. Unbiased schedule making bites me in the ass. So Pac-5, Josh 6-2 here now gets another game up because we had another game in our conference game of the week, second commissioner game of the year. And Brock took me to the woodshed in week 1. A little bit different story this time around. Now Frazier, drops a game here, 4-4, 2 games behind Josh. Frazier.
Yeah. This one felt over from the beginning, and by the beginning I mean Thursday. Get a 54 dropped on me, and right away that one hurt. Honestly, didn't even pay attention much on Sunday. Kind of knew what was unfolding. I just remember that I kind of have to address the Ty Montgomery start.
Oh man.
Here,
Oh,
that's
geez.
still a thing.
Yep. I saw that and I was like,
The thought process behind that was before this week, in my mind, there was still a little bit of what's going on in that Seattle backfield. I never know what to expect out of it. Finally, it looks like we're getting a little bit of a clear idea here. So maybe I can finally just ride Carson. That's the plan. But before this week, I was like, well, if I'm gonna get 5 points out of my RB2, I might as well try this Montgomery thing, who I was expecting to be have the game script of the Rams game in favor of him with the Packers, which I thought would probably be chasing by like 2 touchdowns the whole time. That turned out not to be the case. Mike McCarthy finally trusted Aaron Jones, rightfully so. Gave him a little bit more snaps. And yeah, we all know how the Ty Montgomery thing ended. I think I broke him.
Yeah, you ended his career pretty much.
Yeah.
ended his career and traded him off of the Packers because of it.
BRB.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I get this, like, I was ready to cut Montgomery, and all of a sudden I have to hold on to him again. Try and see how this Baltimore thing shakes out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, obviously Thursday was a lot. This was, this is a typical week for me where it's like, it's either going to be all or nothing, like you got Deshaun going for 30. Fuller obviously has a huge game, and it's very bittersweet as he tears his ACL kind of at the conclusion of that game.
Mm-hmm.
That was rough for me, but yeah. Okay, I'm going to read you my whibs this season. There is no middle ground with this team, okay? Losses, 0, 1, 1, 1. Wins, 7, 9, 9, 7. Like, it's either I'm scoring at the top of the league or I'm like one of the worst teams in the week. And like, I think Caleb used the term boom or bust to describe my team. And that's so real. I don't know what I'm getting on a given week, and that's why the Michael Thomas trade was important for me, because I felt like it provided a little bit of stability in my lineup. But yeah, Caleb, are you alive? Can you talk?
We had double Caleb's there for a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Yeah, I got my earbuds in.
Perfect.
Headed back to the studio, but I can traveling reporter this. So what are we talking about?
Caleb's on the move, traveling podcast. Caleb, we're talking about mine and Brock's game, and specifically how my team has been extremely boom or bust this season, which is something that I believe you kind of mentioned a couple weeks ago, I think, when Brock wasn't here.
Oh yeah, it's been that kind of a season for you where either everyone goes off or nobody does anything. And this is another one of those solid weeks. You love to see Leonard Fournette finally, or not Leonard Fournette. Wow, sorry, walking and talking has just fried my brain. Wow, I might have to sign off.
Can't walk and talk.
Aaron Jones has finally sort of seized that role. And with Ty Montgomery gone, it's just going to be like him and Jamal Boolin, so that's good for you. Yeah, I didn't even realize, Frazier, that you were starting Ty Montgomery, which is funny. But it's interesting game. It wasn't that close, unfortunately. Which is, I would have voted for game of the week just because it's U2 and the stakes are high. But good for Mingo. God, I can't even. Good for Mingo. Get that. You're both at 4-4 now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
What are you going to be driving and potting soon here?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
We don't want any live deaths on the podcast, Caleb, so watch out.
That'd be traumatic.
We're good. I just want to get my phone.
These sound effects are just everything.
Door creak.
Everybody's gonna be like, "What is going on?"
But yeah, Sunday night still had a chance with Gronk, Brady, Gordon going, but I'm pretty sure Gostkowski basically outscored on all of them.
God.
So yeah, a rough week. It's continuing. My team's kind of the same as yours. I'm either scoring 170 or 130.
It's true.
I don't have anything in between there. I don't think actually.
Yeah, you have a lot. You have a lot less of the downswing weeks. Well, I should say one less downswing week, but you're the exact same. It's 0, 1, 1, and then you have a loss with a 7 whip in there as well. But your wins are 8, 8, 8, 9. Like you.
Crazy.
When you come out, you're pretty much putting up a week high or damn near, and these losses, you're down in the 130s. So, but yeah, no, both teams 4-4, joining this cluster of 4-4 teams. We'll see how things kind of progress here. Fraser has only played 2 conference games so far through 8 weeks. So
yeah, I'm all pack 5 from here on out.
Yeah, so get to torch the conference that you are so accustomed to torching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
We're
know.
ready.
Things might be different this year, but
No, we're ready.
All right. Next game, then we had Carter and Parker. This is a game that, traditionally is kind of not a super compelling matchup. This week it was. You got Carter 5-2, Parker looking to get back on track here after a couple of weak performances, and Carter came out and proved himself here. We kind of talked about him as that team that's always around like 150, 155. He was at 168 this week, so highest point total of the season for Carter, and he moves to 6-2.
Mm-hmm. This team, it's for real now. Defense just balled out this week. A lot of big weeks, a lot of double-digit weeks there. Offense is a little stagnant, but he gets a couple big weeks out of Philip Lindsay. Demaryius Thomas gets moved now to Houston. That should be big for him. Obviously got Ertz. 6-2. It's going to be hard to miss the playoffs for him at this point. It's going to take a real collapse. Yeah, we talked about Josh, being 6-2, and is this a playoff team? And it seemed like unanimously we said yes. Carter doesn't quite have the points to back him up, but is this a playoff team? 6-2. He's still got some big games coming up here in the Big 5. 2 with Dan still remaining on the schedule. Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be able to close this out?
That's what I didn't think.
This is definitely.
Oh
yeah, it was like a prove it week for him. Just like with Josh, like, are they really supposed to be here? Are they putting up this kind of production? And I think I'm a believer in both those teams now. You get a win against Parker, a good team there. So yeah, like you said, the Demaryius Thomas move might be big for him. Diggs had a big week, and with Fournette out, Yeldon's still pretty fantasy relevant. And I don't know, it's still so close between everyone that I can't say anyone even at this point is a for sure playoff team, even at 6-2, where probably history says that's good enough at this point in the season to make it. But I don't know, for that, honestly, for Carter, I'm not 100% sure, but this definitely deserves to be in the conversation.
So the difference between Carter and Josh is Josh is kind of Josh is kind of hanging around as far as the tiebreaker with the scoring with me and Tim. So if he does get reeled in by one of us, he still has a feasible chance of kind of keeping pace of scoring with us. He's not too far behind me right now, and I'm not too far behind Tim. For Carter, it's not looking like he's going to beat his main, what you would anticipate to be his main trailer, and Dan. Probably going to be rough to reach that scoring tiebreaker. So Carter's probably going to be forced to beat Dan by at least a game to win the division. So yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah,
and like you said, Josh 159.4 is 3 points behind you, Brock, and about 6 behind Tim, whose average has been dropping rapidly in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I honestly, with 6-2 in a season in which everybody's 4-4, and it kind of just feels like, you know, we're gonna have 7-7, 8-6 kind of be the norm. To already be at 6 wins, and you know, maybe you get that 9-win season that these other teams can't quite get to. You know, maybe that is enough. You know, maybe this start is enough to just kind of carry it through. At the same time, you could easily see these teams like Dan and you, Frazier, start to, you know, pick it up here in the second half and kind of win these games that you kind of expect to win. And like Frazier, you have 2 games against Josh, just like Carter has 2 games against Dan. So it's gonna be tough for these teams to, you know, they're gonna have to prove it. They're not gonna get to walk in just because they started 6-2. But yeah, I think it's definitely it's looking good. But yeah, definitely, I think more. I would say Josh has a pretty good chance to at least be like a wild card team. Carter's gonna have a little bit more to prove on that front if he's gonna be trying to win scoring tiebreakers.
Yeah. Caleb, on the road reporter, you want to report on anything you're seeing there outside?
Well, all the doors to get inside back to the studio are locked, so not really sure what I'm supposed to do now.
Continue on the pod.
Yeah, I guess I can talk for a little bit. Probably not. I should probably get off and call someone so I can get in.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, it was nice with your sound effects and all of your analysis. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I could hop on for a little bit and catch you guys next week. Hopefully another W in my pocket. Good luck to you guys and the rest of you folks out there. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
All right. So no more car noises, unfortunately.
Ding. I can make some if you want.
Please do.
Room.
Okay, what are we talking about? Oh yeah. So that's Carter. 6-2. Parker. This is a team that we kind of picked here to come back full strength in 2018 and maybe even win the Big Five possibly. 3-game losing streak at this point. Still 4-4. You know, the 4-1 start, but not been looking super impressive while some of these other 4-4 teams are. What do you think here?
I believe we swore an oath to not say anything bad about Parker this week.
You're right.
In hopes to keep his mental health in check.
You're right.
The one thing I will point out, he doesn't trust his face of the franchise to get him a W this week, and it costs him. Jameis goes out, throws 4 picks, and the difference between Cam Newton and Jameis's score would have been enough to win the game. So that's a rough one to swallow. When your team just underperforms, you don't get a win. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it happened. We just didn't do it this week. But it's rough when you see one of your decisions lead into your loss on the week. That's all I'll say. Otherwise, I'm going to say some good things. Devontae is a freak. Just dominating everybody at this point. Hopkins, Mike Evans still has one of the best young wide receiver core in the league. So, and they're balling out right now. So he's going to have to continue to ride that. Trust Cam. Despite the 3-game losing streak, there is some bright spots, especially with everyone being 4-4. So he's going to need to turn it around, though.
See, this is the thing, is with the wide receiver core, you know, best in the league, and they're playing like the best in the league, and he's getting production out of Tariq Cohen, so the running back situation doesn't look terrible right now. The offense has been good. The offense has, you know, last week, even with the loss, you know, 105.7, so pretty healthy little total there. What has been failing him during this 3-game losing streak is the defense. He has, as a team that relies on the star power of his defense, he has not been above 50 points for the last 3 weeks. So this is something where, maybe this is just a lull and he's got to work through it, start seeing production out of some of these guys, or maybe make some changes because, it's honestly costing him games at this point. You see a 44 out of the defense and it's usually not going to be good enough.
He's also he's been running into some pretty big weeks against them. Just in the last 3 weeks, I see 174, 178, 167. That's a rough stretch to go through. You got to think that's going to kind of correct back towards the average here, so that should help him. But he's in a rough stretch, being in the Big Five. He's got Dan yet, Carter. He's got another matchup with Carter. Going to try and have to get revenge there, and he's got a Pac-5 matchup with Tim.
Yep, him and Tim are going to close the season. That could be a game where you see maybe Tim's playing another play-in game, or something similar where one of these teams is trying to fight to get in. I want to just touch on what you opened with here with the quarterback thing, because I think I've noticed this over the last few weeks with multiple teams actually. Not really trusting their guy. And the thing about that is Cam Newton's having a great season. Cam Newton had 23 points or higher in the last 2 games. And then you stick him on the bench. I saw a similar thing a couple weeks ago with Calvin benching Carson Wentz, another face of the franchise type guy, for Blake Bortles. And it kind of goes back to what we said with Tim, which is you kind of just got to ride with your guy,
Yeah.
Like there comes a point where, maybe you're seeing some 12s and you're kind of like, should I bench him this week? Honestly, I think the quarterback spot is one of those where you just kind of have to ride with your guy. And especially if you're seeing numbers out of him, trying to play the matchup game with quarterbacks is just so tough.
Yeah. It's tough to know, like, when you want to get cute and kind of play those matchups. Like the thought process for Parker this week was Jameis is facing, I believe he said, the worst pass defense, and Cam was facing one of the best pass defenses, and that was the thought process behind it. So I get that matchups are part of it, but like it's actually part of the fun. Which guys do you stick with on your bench, and then which guys are on your starting lineup, and which guys do you kind of swap out and platoon based on matchups and whatnot.
Yeah, and for me, I kind of have a poster child for a quarterback that you don't really know what you're getting on any given week. I'll have Deshaun, down at 11, have a 5-pointer, and every week I'm like, should I go with Stafford this week? But you get these 30-point games like last week, and it's that's enough to win a game sometimes. So I think sometimes you just have to trust in your guy, and maybe he'll let you down in a couple weeks. But for a guy like Cam Newton, who's just been a rock, obviously this is the brand of the team. I think you just roll with those guys. But yeah, that's part of it. The lineup choices, we talked about that last week too. Just can make or break you. Parker, like the 3-game losing streak is tough for him. He's gonna have some big games coming up yet. Definitely not out of things. Gonna have to see a turnaround probably this week though. Something to show that there's still life in this team, specifically maybe on the defense. And playing Kelvin, the team that started this losing streak. Meanwhile, Kelvin kind of invertedly started his own winning streak against Parker. Came back to 4-4.
Yeah, we had one of these teams was 1-4, one was 4-1. Now they're 4-4, facing off week 9.
Yep, it's a big game coming up there. Speaking of Kelvin, this week, Kelvin playing Dan. This is, this was the kind of game where you got Dan, the number 1 scoring team in the league, and you have Kelvin, this team that's just shooting up the standings after the 1-4 start, and we're all coming on the podcast every week, being like, this team is for real. We can see this. I picked him to make the playoffs last week. This was the kind of game where if he wins, you start to put a little bit more substance into that type of thing. And what does he do? He comes out and beats Dan.
Yeah.
So he's 4-4, and he is for real.
Just a statement week for him. I don't know how things could have gone any better for Kelvin. Being 1-4, all of a sudden just gets hot, gets back to 4-4, and not only does he rip off that win streak to get back to 4-4, he also sees the majority of the league kind of spitter sputter and also end up at 4-4. And here he is in this, what is it, 6-team mix of 4-4s, as hot as any of them, probably the most hot out of any of them, with a chance to do some damage with this running back duo.
Yeah, he is this 3-game winning streak that he's on. He caps it off here with a week high against Dan, 179.3. He's averaging 168 points in the last 3 weeks. That is only bested by you and Dan, I believe. So he's hot. He's playing at the level of those of your two teams, yours and Dan's. Yeah, and even the loss that he had in week 5 was 172.4. This is a team that since his 0-3 start is averaging 168 points per game, which I believe is second in the league to Dan over that period of time. So definitely very hot and very, the team that can definitely beat anybody and is proving that, there's a spot for him. Big game with Parker coming up too. If he can get that second win over Parker kind of in a downswing right now while he's kind of firing, that'd be huge.
Yeah, and I think borderline touch on this every week, but the Le'Veon Bell situation with whatever is going to happen week 10, going to have a huge impact on this team because he's looking the way it's set up right now to be a legit title contender here.
Absolutely. Yeah. James Conner, this kind of production, the RB2, nobody saw this coming. This is unbelievable. And, Saquon Barkley is the number 3. He's got the number 2 and number 3 running backs. If he can keep Conner down the stretch here and moving into the playoff time of the season, this is a team that definitely has what it takes to win it all. So kind of crazy after what happened to him last season. So
what a 3-year stretch that would be. Make the title game 1 year, the next year finish second, get the trade up for the number 1 pick, and then say he wins the title.
Yeah.
What a 3-year stretch.
Crazy. That would be crazy. Dan, on the other hand here, this is the weirdest team to talk about on a week-to-week basis because he never really lets you say anything bad about him. He had the 146 in week 5, which is the lowest he's had this season, with his lowest offensive total ever. That's really it. He's been consistent all season with these totals, but yet he's 4-4. And he loses this week 162.8. Just such a weird year for Dan. He's far and away the highest scoring team, and yet just can't seem to pick up these wins.
Yeah, he's kind of. It's weird. Like, I don't know if it's a case of him racking up those points like in 1 week and not being consistent, but then you look at that and then you see that he hasn't scored below like 146 all year. So it's just like, well, he's putting up these points. Is he running into high scoring teams? But then like I look at it and I see his last couple of weeks, like faced a 154, 147, faced a 139, and then faced a 179 this week. So you're not seeing like outrageous scoring. On the other hand, like not anything out of the ordinary against them compared to anyone else, but he's a victim, like we all are victims of just the craziness of this year, and finds himself in the 4-4 bundle.
Yeah, and like it's the Carters and the Joshes who are 6-2, and it's like this big story, and these are teams, and even like Kelvin, where it's like, are these teams for real? Can these teams go all the way? You kind of almost lose Dan in that conversation because he's 4-4 and he's not making a ton of noise, while also being the highest scoring team in the league. 177. The next team is 165. Like it's not close at all. He's got a 6.5 WIB. This is a team that is just really dominating in terms of statistically, and yet you have the aspect that it is Dan, and you expect this kind of performance from him, and also that he's 4-4, and isn't really, you don't really fear him, despite the fact that he's averaging this many points per game. You kind of go into a week with him thinking, like, I'm playing him this week, and it's like, yes, this is going to be a big game, but like I don't feel like intimidated necessarily, because it's just he's been vulnerable 4 weeks out of the season, so it's just such a weird year for him.
Yeah, and I think every week we talk about like Dan, like best scoring team. When's he gonna start ripping off these wins like a vintage Dan win streak? And it just hasn't happened yet. He runs into Calvin this week, and I don't know who he's got coming up next week, but it's probably going to be someone marginally difficult with the Big Five schedule.
So it's me coming up in week 9 for him, and then he'll go Carter Parker after that. So you got these 3 games in the Big Five for him coming up, with one with the leader in the conference, and then the 2 4-4 teams looking to kind of get themselves back into things. Yeah, I just, it remains to be seen what, this could be a team that wins the last 6 games of the season, and you wouldn't think anything of it, but this could also be a team that's fighting for a playoff spot. It could just be one of those seasons for him where it just doesn't really all come together.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be something? Top scoring team by 10 points per game is playing for a playoff spot in week 14 or something. Like, that would be stupid.
And all of a sudden, if he threw up a dud, could have a top scoring team not make the playoffs. I bet you that hasn't happened.
Nope, definitely not. All right. The other game then, we got one more, I believe, is right. One more.
Yeah.
Dave and Caleb. That's the only one we haven't hit yet. So, in a week full of these really high impact, high stakes games, you also have this game, which kind of a glimpse into maybe who's going to be the number 1 overall pick this season, which does have its own, its own merits. This is, traditionally when teams like this are playing, it is kind of compelling because one of them is going to potentially get a game-changing player. Caleb comes alive. I mentioned last week, like, this is a team that could all of a sudden put up like 170 or 160.
There you go.
And there it is. He's back up here, 177.5 after a 6-game losing streak. So, he's 2-6, but some life here. He makes a big trade, looking pretty good for next season. And, adding maybe the number 2 or number 1 overall pick into this mix, like, Caleb's has a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, really deep young team all of a sudden. Finally gets a huge week. How weird is it that we see this toilet bowl end up in 2 teams scoring over 164 and a week high? But yeah, a lot of Caleb finally gets a week where he doesn't want to kill himself after. Big Marvin Jones week, and Marvin Jones should be in line for more opportunities. Definitely potential trade piece there. But yeah, a lot of good things to happen in this game. Big week for DJ Moore for him. Mixon, Kirion, Fournette. That's looking like a real strong running back core in the future. A lot of good things to say about Caleb this week. Wish he was here.
Right? I wish he was here for me to say this, because I honestly can't believe it when I saw it. But This 177.5, he did not put up a total this high at all last season in a 9-win season. This is his highest point total since week 8 of 2016.
Jeez.
So it's been 2 years since Caleb has put up a number like this.
Michael
Maybe,
Thomas.
yeah, right. First week without his boy, and here he
Yeah.
is.
You locker room cancer? I don't
Yeah,
know.
probably. I fully anticipate ruining his career. I fully anticipate him being out of the league in 2 years because that's just what happens. But, yeah. So, other hand though, Dave sees his second highest point total of the season, 163.2. So, pretty good week for him. Obviously, a loss moves him to 2-6 as well. I'm thinking, despite having the greatest wide receiver of all time, who still is the greatest wide receiver of all time halfway through the NFL season.
Yeah, I want to this Thielen thing, especially with this Michael Thomas trade, because you got to think, like, obviously Michael Thomas is younger, so you're gonna get a better haul there. But there's a ghost in here. You got to think that you could get maybe not quite the haul that you got, but you could get a pretty big haul for Adam Thielen, and one of those things where you could completely rework your future here. So I kind of want to get these rumblings started.
Well, okay, here's the thing though. I went to Dave before Caleb.
Yeah.
I went to Dave for Thielen, and I'm gonna just say right now, I don't think this player is moving.
I know. I want to start these rumblings on my own. I want to get inside Dave's head.
Oh, I see.
I'm trying to convince Dave right now.
Gotcha. Yes, Dave could get a haul for this player right now. This is 8 games of 100 yards receiving every week. And honestly, this is a 28-year-old player. I know Dave is hopeful for next season. He's got some young guys and some picks coming in yet, but this is the kind of player that you cap off a rebuild by trading. This is a veteran guy, a little bit older. You get a haul for him, coupled with all these first-round picks you got coming in, and these other young studs that you have, McCaffrey and Michelle and the likes of those. I mean, Dave could legitimately be a contender next season just based on all of these factors coming together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if he doesn't want to trade Thielen, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to not just act like maybe I want to trade him and just see what comes in, see what you can get, because I have a feeling there's some teams out there that would risk it all for Mr. Thielen.
Let it be known I tried, and let it be known I got Michael Thomas instead, so I wasn't too upset. Except I traded half my team, but.
Yeah, so you got to think that corpse out of this running here, the Thielen running. How does that feel? If there is a Thielen sweepstakes.
It sucks. I wanted him, but it's fine. All right.
Fucking game log is just nuts.
It's stupid. It's stupid. Like, what if he does it every game?
He might. I don't see any reason he wouldn't.
Like, he's never been below 6 receptions in a game. Just, touchdowns in the last 5 weeks. So finally he's putting some, 6-pointers behind these efforts, and he's now finally the number 1 scoring wide receiver. Took him long enough, but yeah, crazy stuff. All right, that's week 8. That is the week after the midway point here. Now we kind of see really no answers. 4-4 is this is honestly hilarious that we have 6 teams at 4-4.
When that was unfolding, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me right now. Like, this guy's gonna be 4-4, he's gonna be 4-4,
yeah,
Calvin's gonna win to be 4-4, Mingo's 4-4, I lose to go 4-4. I'm like, what is happening?
This is 2014. This is what it is. We had 4-4 teams that season. Like, I think maybe even 6 as well, or 5 or something. Meanwhile, you are 8-0, and
I
we don't have
that.
we don't have that this season. We don't have an 8-0. We don't have the clear favorite at this point. Our two conference leaders are still kind of like the underdog type teams, despite this impressive 8-game stretch that each of them has had. You're still kind of waiting for something to happen with them. So interesting to see how that unfolds as we move forward. Week 9 games. Another great little slate here. I got the poll up early because I was super excited about these games. We're running a little bit long here today, so maybe lightning round type predictions. How's that sound, Brock?
Sounds fantastic.
All right, let's do this.
I thrive on the lightning round.
I love the lightning round. It makes me feel like I'm on like Fox pregame.
You should put a little,
Just like,
little background intense music during the lightning round in there.
all right, I'm gonna explore that.
Yeah, give it a little bit added oomph.
All right, Big Five.
Maybe the 2-minute drill music.
Ooh, that would be nice. This is happening. This is fucking happening. We're doing lightning round every week now. This is the only way to do it. All right, Big Five. Mingo and Dan. This is a game that usually has a ton of weight behind it, and both teams 4-4. What are you thinking?
Big week for both these teams. 4-4. You don't want to go 4-5. Big projected totals out of each historically high-scoring teams. I pick Mingo in the upset.
Let's go. I'm gonna pick myself. The Michael Thomas effect is real. The team's gonna come alive. Aaron Jones finally getting the ball. Amari Cooper, big debut in Dallas.
Boom.
Okay, Parker and Kelvin, the game that started the rest of these teams' seasons.
Another 4-4 matchup between the two. So we're gonna have 1 4-5. One's on a 3-game winning streak. One's on a 3-game losing streak. I'm gonna pick Parker to bounce back. I think water is gonna find its level here. Parker's due for a win. Galvin's due for a loss.
I've been Team Kelvin all season. Picked him to make playoffs last year. Seeing a lot out of this team. Seeing Kenyon Drake in the starting lineup instead of Saquon Barkley this week, which doesn't look terribly gross following last week's performance, but I am going to pick Parker as well. Bounce back week for Parker.
Boom.
Okay, moving to the Pac 5. We got Frazier and Dave.
We got some Thursday scores in here. Kittle already goes off. I think it's an important week for me coming off the loss to kind of get to 5-4, take advantage of some of those other 4-4 matchups with some teams also going to move to 4-5. It would suck to kind of blow one here against a 2-6 team. So I'm going to take myself to move to 5-4.
Yeah. Too much firepower on your team. I know it's kind of boom or bust with the 130s and such, but I think with Kittle's number already in there and we kind of get a glimpse into what this week's going to look like, I am going to go Frazier to move to 5-4. Okay, other Pac 5 game then is Josh and Caleb. So kind of game that, Josh has been beating these big teams. Can he beat the 2-6 Caleb team coming off of its best week in 2 years?
Yeah, that's some of the most nerve-wracking games once you become a contender, like the one I got with Dave, where you have this 2-6 team here. They're a little bit scary. Caleb's kind of a lot of it scary right now coming off his week high. So it's one of those games where you could see Josh dropping it. Gets Gronk this week. Gronk going against the Packers, making his debut for Josh. I think I'm gonna pick Josh to go 7-2.
Yeah. The defense, Caleb's defense has stepped up in the last 2 weeks, averaging 67 points in the last 2 weeks, kind of matching Josh's about weekly performance for the season. That could be important, but I also think Josh, the offense is looking really good with James White. Now he gets Gronkowski, who I'm going to say has a touchdown this week for the first time since week 1. Josh moves to 7-2 and we start talking about this team as a legitimate Pac-5 winner.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Interconference game of the week. Tim and Carter.
Tim and Carter. Carter 6-2. He's been proving doubters and haters wrong all year. Every week we get on here, we talk about how he's not scoring enough, but I think this is the week that he puts up 175. I'm gonna say he puts up a season high points and beats Tim, moves to 7-2, and next week we're talking about a legit title contender.
Yep, this is a team that would have beaten Tim in the last 2 weeks. Tim's kind of on a down stretch here, down in the 130s, gets his running backs back this week. But Carter coming off of his best output of the season and an 86 out of the defense, which we've had, I think, 3 teams go 86 this season, which is 10th all time. So the defensive scoring has been pretty good all around this season. But yeah, a lot of defensive firepower. Tim's defense kind of coming alive a little bit too, but I'm going to pick Carter. We're going to have 2 7-2 teams. Tim is going to be on a little bit of a losing stretch here. So,
boom.
All right, that's week 9. Huge. This is going to be. We're going to come on here next week, and this is going to be crazy because there's no more even playing fields after this. We can't be 4-4 anymore. It's somebody's going to have 5 wins, and yeah, teams like Parker. If Parker is 4-5, I think maybe that's you're starting to tell the tale of the season.
Yeah, we are in the stretch here. Things are officially established, and we're at 4-4 here, and we are into that stretch where every week we just get on the podcast and things are just insane because every one of these games now is very important.
Yeah, these are, as much as week 9 games can mean anything in the grand scheme of things, these are some games where you want to win. You want to win every week, obviously, but these are the kind of games with other 4-4 teams. If you're one of those teams where if you can separate yourself right now and kind of get that game up. Meanwhile, the conference leaders have some games where maybe they could move to 7-2. You want to kind of keep pace with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big time week coming up, week 9. So, all right, Frazier, you got anything else for me?
No. Should we make it a great week?
Let's make it a great week 9.